Right, we are going to continue with the next panel of this afternoon. Percival, are you there? Percival, I thought that you were coming to Buenos Aires. Unfortunately, I couldn't make it because at the 11th hour there were things and I couldn't make it on time. Percival, you have 70% of the attendees that are Brazilian, which is a very positive thing. And I believe that you will have to speak either Spanish or English. So we'll see if you can start in Spanish or in English. We'll have simultaneous interpretation. We miss you in the SSIG. Saudade. We missed you because we had you in other schools in the past.
Pouco,
O que você quiser.
para poder introduzir dessa forma o contexto dos top domínios de topo, né, os top level domínios.
Ok, eu desejo dizer uma coisa.
Pois não?
Você pode usar um headphone, porque o áudio que chega aqui para os tradutores não é bom. Mientras busca, eu gostaria de contar para vocês que
I'd like to tell you something. I'm going to tell you this in Spanish very slowly. Percival approached me in an ICANN meeting in Holland, in the Netherlands, a couple of years ago. And he told me that the Internet Management Committee wanted to work with the school, and I was delighted because they're very important in Latin America. And it's a multi-stakeholder model, which is very important throughout the world. I think it's probably the best known. It's just grown from strength to strength over time. So the CGI has been supporting the school for several years now, actually, and we're very grateful for the support from Percival and Marvin, who's also Percival's school, who's been with the school. He's in Buenos Aires. Marvin, you've been a student at the school since 2022. You were here with us in Campina Grande last year, and this year you're with us in Buenos Aires. I wrote the slide. I might have got some of the dates and information wrong. But anyway, so who have we got here with us? Marcos's presentation. Do you want to tell them what's going on this evening? Can you hear me? This is very important, folks. Oh, come on. Well, anyway, 6:30. We have a student who has invited us to share a toast at 6:30. So let's stay down here for a cocktail after this finishes at 6:30. And I'd also like to revisit an old tradition of the school. But the students have to get ready for this. But anyway, this is an old tradition that we haven't done for a couple of years. It's songs per country. So Argentines can talk to me. I just want to go back to the 2009. Percival, over to you again. I just want to finish what I was saying. I want to hear a song from each country. And if you're on your by yourselves, I can help you. You can even sing in English if you want. German, Portuguese. Argentines, we need to get together to figure out what we're going to sing. It'd just be very ad hoc, but it's going to be fun. Anyway, Percival, here we are, ready to listen to you. We can hear you a little bit better than before.
Na tela, agora vemos na tela a primeira slide de tua apresentação.
Shall we see the first slide of your presentation? Okay. Sorry, what did you say? Are you going to sing something? Are you going to sing something?
Ah, você quer cantar? Claro.
Não quero
Claro,
cantar. Quero
mas
saber
tem
se
que...
você...
Are you? No. Do you sing? Maybe you can join us. Can we start? Afternoon. I'm sorry I can't be with you. I'd really like to be there because I think it is a great experience to be part of this school. In fact, it's something that's always great to get together at events like this. They're such important events in our lives. I'd like to thank everybody for inviting me to speak today. And I'd like to congratulate you on the prize that you were awarded by the International Telecommunications Union. It's an event which seeks to get to connect people, or the initiative undertaken by the school is of enormous importance for all institutions working to achieve greater connectivity and access to internet so that the world can be a better place. So first I'd like to start by congratulating the school for this prize and for being able to help communities to improve their access to internet and to help people to improve their online lives and, digital environment. I'd like to talk about internet in the context of this country. As you know, we've been working with Nick BR for 35 years. It's important for people to understand the issue of domain, the BR domain. what I want to explain to you how important it is to be able to guarantee this domain on when it comes to social networks, because it's a guarantee that you have a space in which, wherever you go, we use domain names throughout the region. We need to understand how this space, the domain names work. And we need to understand them as a space, which is not a private one, but a collective one. You can have a domain name, and this means that you can grow and that companies have access to it and can use it, and it's kind of a branding thing. I represent the IGF, which was created in Brazil, CGI, on May 31st, 1995, which was the beginning of the CGI. That's when we had our own internet domain, and that's where internet began in this country. It was a multi-sectoral setup, and the decree reaffirmed the multi-sectoral composition of CGI.br, and it included many representatives of different sectors. It was multi-sectoral, and one of the current features of internet governance is that it's a multi-stakeholder organization, lots of different stakeholders. And this means that the decisions about internet reflect what society needs and wants, whether it's academia, whether it's the private sector, whether it's non-governmental organizations, civil society. And so this organization defined the competencies or the faculties, and including the top-level domain of the country in Portuguese. And it also defined that the CGI would be responsible for the quality of this address and would ensure that the services provided would be of high quality, and also established policies and procedures related to internet regulation. And this is something, after the 1990s, the CGI has evolved, and in 2003 it updated its structure, which is the same one that we have today and that you can see in this image. We have 9 basic participants. We have 4 from the private sector, 1 of the key persons from each entity involved. The CGI in Brazil, once it's a formal body, which has a committee and a specific structure. It has different tasks. It has legal status, and it manages different domains, anything that has to do with .br, whether it's org.br or and nick.br. We have the ITCs industries. And we have obviously a way of gathering statistics on the ITCs. And we gather information from the different stakeholders in the information and communications industry. We also have what we would call gatekeeping to ensure that everything is it's a secure environment. We also have CERB, which covers the aspect of technology, and WS. And the vice president.
Bom, sigamos. A primeira coisa que eu queria falar com vocês sobre.
The first thing I want to talk about is internet and telecommunications. One of the things that is becoming increasingly confusing is the difference between internet and telecoms. When did these differences start to become apparent? What is the path traced by internet? Now, before, when you talked about telecoms, everybody understood that it was all about physical connections, connecting one point with another. And you could even do this on one of these old panels, these telephone operating panels. So you linked one end with the other, and you had to have people physically working in each location. And that was telephony services for you, because it was about linking point A with point B. And that was how communication happened. And people, even if people didn't say anything, there was somebody there and the circuit was up and running. And that was what communication was about. But that system only enabled us to connect 3 people with another 3 people. And then we developed packages. If you had all these different channels and you had 20 people, like 3 channels but 20 people, you can divide the communication for each of these people into small packages. And the information seeks different channels to get to its destination. The number of people who are involved in this communication is not necessarily the same as the number of circuits that I'm using. I've divided everything into these packages using a protocol which is called a TCP. And these packages come together at the end. So you have 3 people talking and 3 people who are silent. The packages will still pass through these different networks. I hope that you can understand me. More or less. Do you need me to speak more slowly? Yes, that would help. I am going to speak more slowly. And I'm going to talk about these dedicated circuits. When you have these 2 points and communication by circuit, only 2 people can talk, right? This has a dedicated circuit from one point to the other. what was the great revolution, the great transformation? This was the communication through packages. When the point of origin and the point of destination can involve many more channels and many more people. I, I can divide these packages into lots of tiny pieces. So if you have two people taking out one circuit and they're quiet, there can be other packages of information passing through that space. So it's no longer a dedicated space, but a space that can be used by lots of different communication at the same time, because it's all split up into packages. Moving on. This is the essence of Internet beyond the IP. First issue. There is a very simple explanation about Internet, which says the following. Internet is a network of networks. Okay? It's a network of computers which are linked between each other, which communicate with each other. It could be a school, it could be a company. But how does the school network communicate with a school in another city? So this means that anybody can take part in this network, but there needs to be an agreement which is called a protocol, which governs the format of communication, enabling everybody to communicate with each other and understand each other. It's like, okay, speaking Portuguese and somebody else listening in Spanish, and nonetheless being able to communicate with each other. So the IP is what enables this to happen. So I think it's important for you to know this, because in the world there are only 120,000 networks. Sounds very little when you think that we have over 7 billion inhabitants and that the half of these are on internet. So it's nearly 4 billion people who are online. But there are only 120 sets of numbers making up the networks and companies, right? ISPs. Well, we seem to have lost him.
Nosotros estamos ok. Esa soy yo. No, pero acá los chicos dicen que la sala está bien.
There seems to be a problem with the speaker's device rather than us. We're okay. Okay, folks. Well, this gives us an opportunity to think what songs we're going to sing. Apparently, it's going to be a karaoke tonight. Is that right? Oh, I didn't know there's a karaoke in Buenos Aires. There are lots. Gosh, I thought it was a Japanese thing. Okay, who's in charge? Who's organising this? Oh, I think he's already gone off to the guy who's organising the drinks this evening. Looks like he's already gone off. Yes, I'm back. Okay. I was saying that there are just 120,000 networks that are active, which is pretty, which is not very much really, if you think about it. Did you hear me? Okay, great. Okay, so moving on, I could go into the technical details.
Então, assim, essa rede, lembra que eu falei da questão dos caminhos, que agora tem vários caminhos, né? Então, essas redes,
So these networks,
para você
these
chegar a elas,
we can
você
reach
tem
them.
70 mil possibilidades.
You have
Ou seja,
70 million possibilities of accessing them.
eles, né, 80 mil instituições, empresas, enfim, quem tem, que sejam.
Sorry, the sound is so bad, that and he keeps cutting out.
Sí, la vida.
Caiu novamente aqui.
Oh, well, let's try again. Can you hear me? If you turn off your camera, perhaps the connection might benefit. Just maybe you can just see your computer screen. Just hang on a second, I'll share my computer screen. Can you hear me? You are listening to me, aren't you? Okay, now we can see it. Now we can see your PowerPoint. We can't see you, but we can see your PowerPoint. So, if we look at the roots, in order to reach these 70,000 networks, we have a set of 700,000 possibilities. And finally, last but not least, we have a DNS system. 70 or 80,000 networks. And I have services, I have servers, network servers, media servers, data servers, all kinds of things. And the numbers involved are huge. Now the system needs to make the relationship between the name and the IP address, and this means that it has to have a reference that we don't need names, we have IP address. For instance, we have www.something.rr or www.percival.br, and on the basis of that, there are all these different routes that follow different numbers. This routing needs to know that when you are speaking from a specific number, you are in a system where there could be problems. If we move on to here, you can see the, 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 the different turns, twists and turns that the route takes when you access a specific network. Now, when we talk about DNS, how the different information follows these routes, and what happens when a client asks a question, how it reaches something which is a .br. It goes to the local server.
Y bueno,
por WhatsApp no le dan
no. Pero si ya no se escucha nada, Adri.
Voltei de outra conexão agora. Eu acho que talvez essa agora funcione melhor. Posso continuar?
Okay, let's move on. So I was explaining how the servers work throughout the world. And, and I just wanted to make a break here to talk about two things. Everything I've mentioned up till now is not covered by the DNS system, which is 80,000 autonomous systems, which are companies, universities, who access internet. They are obliged to comply with the rules, to follow the routes set by these services, and to comply with the protocols. That's the basis of internet. When people say internet is neutral, it's because there is an underlying agreement. And when I access internet, or when I get an assignation to an autonomous system, that is a commitment to enable all the other routes to pass through mine without any interruption, because I want these packages, which we talked about in the beginning, that every package is an independent unit and that each package is going to take different routes before coming together. But the route which is most appropriate to reach these packages, because if that package doesn't go through, which then there is a problem. And that means that in the long term, internet doesn't work as it should do, doesn't fulfill its purpose. For instance, that happens when you have blockages in certain countries, like between Ukraine or in Russia. They had limited DNS. Or the issues also happens in the United States. And when during the US elections, the issue was about Russian interference in the elections, and at one point they wanted to be able to source the IP addresses that were being used. But the point is that you can't restrict this, because otherwise it's not a truly open and neutral network, because they wanted to block these addresses. The second really key issue is the issue of the root servers in the United States. You can see how this works. The server in the United States brings together the information which goes to another DNS in the United States, and then this grows and grows exponentially, and goes to Japan or other places around the world. And then another issue becomes relevant, which is how the system is represented in different places where, for instance, a server installed in Brazil connects directly to one in Japan. This system has to be very resilient and very strong, because obviously if a server goes down, one of the national servers, this can affect the security and safety of the information and all of the users. So it's really important to have strong and resilient DNS. Here I'm going to tell you a little bit about how this all happened in Brazil. Basically, Brazil began with universities. They used internet for their research purposes. They called it BitNet. And those days, which was basically for amateurs, and they didn't really have a name then. And then and people would enter, like John Postel. He drew up this famous map, like which basically explains how internet works. He Then there's Steve Crocker, which he the kind of the grandfathers of internet who developed it in the way as we know it today. But Postel was the original architect who developed the idea of the distribution of what we call internet names. And he developed this idea of how you distribute the networks, which have grown to be 70, 80,000 today. But he began with one, and then another one, and he built it bit by bit. Here, talking about households, we have over 5 million domain names in Brazil. The iDNA and the DNSSCC, which are quite a bit less. The DNSS are the Domain Name System Security Extensions, and they're registered servers which basically carry out security checks. And the 18,000 iDNA is a new effort to make internet more robust and working with different alphabets or characters which didn't exist to begin with. Like in Portuguese, there's a cedilha, the C, there's the different accents, or Japanese or Arabic characters, or Cyrillic, Russian, so forth. And originally they weren't contemplated. If you remember, at one point there weren't any accents used on internet, like when iPhones came to Latin America. So it's very good to know, very satisfying to know that we are included. Our DNS are included, including languages like Guarani in Paraguay, which is the first indigenous language in Latin America. And it's the first to be included with its particular features on the internet. And this is very important for Paraguay. And I have to say that Latin America as a whole is very happy with this. And this has already been implemented. And here we're talking about the TLDs, which are the top level domain names. As you can see, these are different protocols, and we are in 10th place. These are free. And when you this is the list of the largest ones, and you can see the top ones obviously are generic ones, and then you have the countries, and then first comes the United Kingdom, and as we can see, Brazil is in 10th place. And again, it's among the top 10. Now, if we talk about the CCTLDs, we have China and Germany, United Kingdom, Russia. Brazil is in 8th place, and then the European Union. It's .eu, right? And this is followed by France, Germany, Norway, the Netherlands. As you can see in this context, these are the most important ones in terms of the number of registrations in 2024. This is obviously a testament to the fact that things have grown very quickly in Brazil, and the curve is now pretty pronounced. After that, I'm one more thing about domain names. When you register a domain name, whatever it is, whoever you are, you can have a domain name and indicate that, for instance, you are working in the social sector, but you might not necessarily have it related to your activity. Now, these are the names have a lot to do with things like which is security and reliability. There's a major diversity of subdomains, and this is growing all the time. A domain .tv is one of the biggest sites that's growing. BR, we have 4,000 requests per second. A lot of people are registered on this site, which provides access. And this is a site that takes the online service number in town. So the market is growing fast. I'm nearing the end of my presentation. Anybody who wants to can have their own domain today. It's paid. You can put all your information on your own domain, and people to whom you want to, you can just share your the domain name .br to anybody, and you can advertise your services using this, obviously. And okay, that's it. Thank you very much. I've finished. I am sorry that my connection kept going down. I'm sure it's I'm sure it's chilly in Buenos Aires. Yes, maybe it's been snowing.
Nós notificamos, lamentando bastante naquele emprego.
Do you have time for a few questions, Percival?
Vamos,
Yeah, sure.
discussão.
I don't have a microphone, just hang on a second. Hi, I'm Larissa. I'm from Brazil. I'm a lawyer. Thank you very much for your presentation. It was technically very interesting. I wondered if you could tell us a little about how and the different uses of telephony for internet services. I think there's a great difficulty to understand the different services that are available. Could you explain to us the differences and the infrastructure being used? Because there are a lot of areas that are still don't have access to internet. This is an accelerated Portuguese course for all of us who speak Spanish. For me too. Okay. That's when you talk about the pace of development of internet and the infrastructure of circuits, you have to make sure that these circuits have the possibility of growing. So the package of data, whether it's fiber optics or a company network, whatever, the telecommunications structure is what creates the space for these packages to travel from one end to the other. The problem with internet is that telecommunications abandoned the older technologies and have moved into internet. So it's like a kind of cannibalism. I'm internet, I'm a package of information using a physical structure. So it's using these cables that were being used before for maybe telephony or something like that. And these structures originally supported internet, but it's like they've become obsolete. And the rules haven't been very clear because it's all happened so fast. However, today, when you talk about packages, we're talking about IPs, we're talking about internet, telecommunications. It's when people think about telecommunications today, we think about old telephones. And there's a certain amount of truth to that. Because telecommunications are the physical infrastructure, and internet is something new that's been planted on top of that. People say, oh, let's just migrate from landlines to everything being Wi-Fi. Public services should move into the cloud, and maybe many services have to be privatized on the way. The logic is that the circuits should remain, but that we build on them. These circuits as we knew them just don't exist anymore. Last question, because our other panelist is online. I am Alvinho, and my question is about the outlook you talked about at the beginning when you talked about the creation of the CGI, which is something that you talked about in your book, which is a great book, by the way. And when you talk about CGI, on the multi-sectoral, multi-stakeholder perspective, I was thinking about the fact that Brazil is leading the movement called Internet 10. And I wanted to know what the role played by the CGI is in leading this movement called Internet 10. Is it more active? Is it more passive? What role is the CGI playing in this sense? The first, thank you for the question. The first issue is that there aren't isn't a specific vertical rule. We're not talking about vertical rules in internet governance. Because the most important point here is the view of the citizen. When we talk about networks and you don't understand the DNS system or the communication by package, then it means that you don't have enough understanding of the rules and ultimately have no authority to talk about this. These rules aren't just merely imposed by standards that everybody has to follow, but very much respond to the conditions reigning at the time. So I think that in Brazil has a role to play in leading the development of the democratization of internet access. And oh, he's been cut off again. This accelerated Portuguese course, this happened to me once before when I was working. I didn't speak a word of Portuguese, and there wasn't any internet at that time. So the project finished, and as soon as it finished, I started studying Portuguese because I really think it's very important to be able to speak as many languages at all, and they have different accents. You have different accents. Larissa, where are you from? There are just two of us from the northern Brazil. Larissa, where are you from? Where from? Brazil is enormous, you know. It practically spans the entire breadth of the continent. So it's very big and there's very different accents. I know Argentina has lots of accents too. I'm almost Chilean.